Yo, welcome back to Projects Gaming. My name is Cal, and today we're going to be doing another build. So this build is going to include this brand new case from Jonsbo. It's the D32 Pro. It's an mATX case. It's currently only available on the Chinese market. As of this filming of this, it's not yet released on the international market. But before we start, if you guys are in the market for a gaming mouse, please check out Projects Gaming Sleeper. And also subscribe to the channel, give us a like, and leave us a comment. And let's get to it. All right, first off, let's look at the accessory kit. So you have here, this is for cable management. This is to hide some of the cables along the motherboard. And then in here, we have some sticky pads. Then I believe this is for the graphic card, but we'll find out very shortly. And then this is right here. This is to support longer graphic cards. Oops. And here we have some extra screws, some padding, and some zip ties. That's what you get from the accessory kit. So this is my first look at it as well. So we're gonna be doing this together. So right off the bat, we have tempered glass on the front, sorry, the side. And then we basically have mesh in the front, on the top, and also along this side, and the back as well. So it's quite ventilated. And so let's look at the front I/O. So what do we have here? Initially I thought these were buttons, but they're not. You got a Type-C, two USBs, audio, a reset, and a power button. I like the orange accent. It's on brand with us. And let's open it up. A couple of thumb screws in the back, so this should be quite easy. So first thing I noticed, it's got a mesh here to keep the dust out. It's got one on the top as well. I don't know if you can see it right here. And let's just look at the inside as well. So I actually forgot to mention, this bracket here is for your SFX adapter, if you're running a SFX power supply. So the most interesting part about this case is it supports back connect. So if you're running a regular motherboard, then it's perfectly fine, you don't have to do anything. But if you're running a back connect motherboard, there's gonna be some things that you have to do, and we're gonna show you right now. So first I'm gonna highlight some of the points that you gotta pay attention to. So one off is right here, you'll see that it says A and B. So A is for normal setup, but if you want to run a back connect motherboard, then you're gonna have to move these screws into this place. And this will shift the entire back support over to the left, giving you more room to plug things from the back. In addition to that, you're gonna have to unmount this as well, and you'll see right here as well, you'll see a AB. So you're gonna have to move it back into the B slot in order to fit the back connect motherboard. And I'm gonna go show you right now. Again, right here, these screws, there's AB. So for back panel, back connector, you're gonna have to move it to the B slots. right, don't forget to remove this piece as well since you shifted the motherboard over. Alright, this is just an extra piece. Put it safely away, and so in case that if you want to go back to the regular position, you have this available to cover up. So that's how you get everything into position B so that you can actually use a back connect motherboard. So unfortunately for us, we don't have a back connect motherboard. We're going to be using a regular motherboard, so I'm just going to put it back into position A, the regular setup. I'm going to do that off camera, and then we'll continue with the build. All right, so I took out the bracket for the power supply. So there's 2 slot positions. So right now this is default. If you need a little bit extra space, so this is pushing this down. There's this hole right here, like that. So with this setting, this sits much lower. Whereas before it was somewhere like up here. All right, let's get to installing the parts into the PC. So usually the method we do is the motherboard first, but in this particular case, given the many times I've done this before, we always run into issues with cable routing. We're actually gonna install the PSU first. And just something to note, there's also a dust filter here, but this will be very hard to get to once you have the PSU installed. For the PSU, you actually have 2 mounting orientation. You can do it with the fan facing out, or you have the fan facing in because you have a screen mesh here. But since we have this option, I think it's better to have the fan facing out. So we're gonna put the power supply in, so make sure the fan is oriented towards the front and the plug is on this side. And make sure you actually plug it in first before you slot it in because it won't fit after. Right, so there's 2 settings I mentioned earlier, so we're going to use this one first to show you the difference here, and then we snap it here. You would place the screw here, but in this case we're just showing you, so we're not going to do that. And then make sure it's locked in place. Alright, so that's roughly what it looks like. So if you run this graphic card, as you can see right here, you can actually run longer graphic cards here because there's room over here. But since we're running an ATX power supply and our graphic card only goes up to about here, it doesn't really bother this. We're going to use it in the other setting, which is lower, so it'll sit a little bit lower here. So time to drop the motherboard in. So before we do that, I want to make sure we add back one of these screws because we were running an mATX board. Go. And then we're going to be dropping the motherboard in. Since this is coming from a pre-existing build, we already have the bracket for the AIO already installed. So don't forget that step. So I did some pre-cable management, so I'm gonna start plugging them in right now. So now it comes for a cooling solution. So Jonsbo sent us this AIO as well as a couple of fans. So this one is the TG240 ARGB liquid cooler, and then the fans we're going to be using the FR505, and they come in both directions. let's get to unpacking. All right, let's talk about the cooling solutions that we're going to be using, or the fans. So this one we swapped out. So this AL actually came with another set of fans, but we swapped it out for these, so they're all unison. And I'm going to focus a little bit more on this because a lot of the questions from the previous videos about case building, it's always about the orientation of the fans, because these fans are directional. So this one is drawing air this way and through the water cooler. And these are the bottom fans right here, and it's drawing air from the bottom up. And then for the fan over here, it's drawing air from inside the case and pushing it out. So that's the orientation. So have a look at it. Just look at the fan blades, and that's how you'll tell.
So there it is, the D32 Pro. While we didn't fully explore this case with the back connect motherboard setup, we plan to revisit it once we have one on hand. Currently, we're a bit of a bind, having waited for the new Intel motherboards and chips only to hear negative feedback from reviewers. We're hesitant to switch to AMD just yet, but if Intel doesn't improve, we might consider jumping back on the AMD train. One advantage of supporting both standard and back connect configuration is that it future-proofs your system in case back connect actually becomes the new standard. Now, from a traditional case perspective, the build quality remains exceptional, as is consistent with this particular model. So regarding clearance, the top accommodates up to two 140mm fans and a maximum of 240mm AIO cooler. The bottom can fit three 120mm fans or two 140mm fans, as we've done in our setup. The back supports only a single 120mm fan. This case allows for up to four 2.5-inch SSDs and two 3.5-inch HDDs, as illustrated in the graphic. For the graphic card, if the PSU baffle is set to the highest position, you can install a GPU up to 365mm. Unfortunately, Jonsbo didn't provide an official clearance data for the lowest setting, but in our build, a card measuring 281mm fit comfortably with potentially another 10mm to play with. Building in this case was relatively straightforward. It offered ample space, particularly in the standard motherboard mode, which provides an additional 6mm of space compared to your typical cases, thanks to the design accommodating the back connect motherboard stance. The only time I encountered limited space was during the installation of the pump and radiator fan headers. So let's talk about some of the annoying things I've encountered. So one of them is the front dust filter. It's a bit tricky to access for cleaning. The borders on the tempered glass are noticeably thick, which feels outdated for a 2024 design. The case panel screws not being attached all the time makes it very easy to misplace, especially when you're taking the computer apart. The exposed PSU, which could be addressed if you had a more visually appealing PSU. All right, so now let's switch to the good features above and beyond the usual good stuff that you get from Jonsbo. So first off, in terms of breathability, as you can see this case, basically all sides is mesh except for this tempered glass. The shroud significantly enhances the case aesthetics, allowing for the concealment of really ugly power cables if you choose to go that route. The GPU support bracket positioned on the motherboard side, so it helps keep the front of the case, the tempered side case, very clean. And it supports back connect mode, which allows for future adaptability should it become mainstream. So the last one is the PSU baffle, which helps hide the dangling cables that comes up for a PSU. So there you have it, the D32 Pro at a glance. It provides a solid option for most builders out there. You definitely can't go wrong with it. So that's it for this video. Please subscribe, like, comment, and we'll see you guys in the next one.